If you've ever felt helpless, hopeless, or like a victim on your healing journey, then this episode is going to provide powerful insights to get you unstuck on your journey. Today, I get to speak with Caurel Richards. She's a dedicated and seasoned transformation catalyst and hypnotherapist who makes the impossible possible, especially when everything else has failed. She has a background in Rapid Transformational Therapy and a passion for holistic healing modalities. She specializes in supporting high performers like yourself who experience chronic pain and injuries. Drawing from her years as a student athlete in her early life, she understands firsthand the challenges of pushing past physical limitations to achieve peak performance. Through a tailored approach, she empowers you to address the underlying emotional and psychological factors contributing to your pain, enabling you to unlock your full potential and achieve your goals with confidence. Welcome to the Unweaving Chronic Pain podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Andrea Moore, founder of the Whole Self Integration Method. And I'm here to guide you from a life that feels trapped, limited, and stuck due to chronic pain and chronic anxiety to one where life gets to feel expansive and you get to wake up ready to start your day. Whether you're a first-time listener or you've been with me for a while, thank you so much for being here. And if you have found this podcast to be helpful, please share it with a friend, and even better if you can give it a rating on Apple. This helps other people find the podcast as well, and it is a wonderful way to say thank you if you enjoy the information you have been receiving. All right, getting into today's episode. Welcome, Caurel. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you.
I've been waiting for this for the past week, and I'm glad I made it.
I love it. I'm so glad you're here, and I have just loved your energy that has come through on like the videos that you put out on your Instagram and YouTube, wherever I was watching them, and I'm just so excited to dive into this conversation and really explore the unconscious elements behind chronic pain, because that's my favorite topic as well.
Yeah.
And so I would love to hear a little bit about you and what brought you to where you are today. And I know it's a big question, but
it is like we're gonna be here all day.
I know.
Right? What brought me to where I am? Who am I? It's interesting when I get asked that question. It feels loaded, but I simplify by just saying I was created to transform lives. You know, I make the impossible possible because of the nature of what I do. It's the unconscious, the subconscious mind. It's the power hub. You know, a lot of people don't realize how much power they give to their mind. To the point where they feel out of control. They feel like they're not the ones in the driver's seat. So that part is my favorite part, just like you. I just love exploring the mind. I just like the curiosity of what can happen in a typical day, in a typical moment because of the mind. But outside of that, I'm a lover of life. I love to explore. Like my whole journey has been just one of exploration and a lot of experiences. And through those experiences, I have learned a lot about human nature. I've learned a lot about the human experience. And as a result of what I've learned, they call me the puzzle master. I've put certain pieces together to see the big picture. And in seeing the big picture, I'm able to tell a different story and allow others to tell a different story that empower them versus victimizing them, is for lack of a better term right now.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. What are your favorite things to explore?
I love the body. First of all, you know, I think because I'm in the midst of it right now, my own body, just exploring and what it's capable of, what it's not, its limitations. So right now, the solid answer I'll give is the body right now. But outside of that, I love exploring the facets of nature. Right. And I believe that we are a part of nature and nature is a part of us. So I'm into this whole spirit animal thing. And I'm recognizing more different animals are coming around, and an owl just wouldn't leave yesterday. A crow wouldn't leave. So I'm looking at the significance of it, and that's what I'm really exploring right now in this moment.
Oh, that's so cool. I love exploring different things like that. Like it's so fun. And yes, to the mind itself. I feel like my son, he's in like a superpower, phase, and he's always he would fly, and he's like, what would you do? I was like, I would just like be in someone's mind, because I just want to know what they are thinking, right? Like what makes someone else tick. I'm like, I would just love to be able to be in someone else's mind for like just a day at a time and be like, what happens in other people's brains? Because I don't know.
You know what's funny? I think we're already doing it. I think we are so similar as individuals that we think we're not in their mind, but we are. I think we're all so pushed to be so different. But the truth about it is we're very much the same, or sometimes very similar. We go through the same struggles. They may look different, but it's the same.
Yes. Oh, I'm so with you on that. I like talk about that a lot, of like, you have made it through pretty much every experience already. It's just might be in very different flavors. Like you went through big disappointment. It may have been the disappointment of losing a favorite necklace versus now it's the disappointment of getting fired from your dream job, right? Like, you felt disappointment and you survived it.
Yeah. And you can even thrive beyond it. I think a lot of people stop at the survival point when there's so much more beyond that. And I think that's where we limit ourselves in terms of our mind, is that we think it's just, okay, we're here to just survive, get through each day. Yeah, after a while, you're going to become a pro at that. Okay? It's now time to become a pro at something else. And I know it's scary because you just don't know what's on the other side. Mm-hmm. But the lack of knowing, the unknown, I know it's scary, but it's so beautiful. As someone that has experienced it so many times, I know you don't know me, but you're getting to know me, but you can trust that it's such a beautiful experience if you allow it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, that uncertainty piece is huge. And I think I'm at a client right now who I'm just thinking of, where she's dealing with a lot of uncertainty, and she's going to get it's like a job thing, right? Like she's just literally having to wait for somebody else to make a decision that she just doesn't have. There's no control she has right now over it. She's done what she can do. It's now simply waiting. And so she struggles a lot with uncertainty around a lot of other things. And I was like, oh, this is like the most beautiful moment to practice being with the uncertainty, because right now it's so clear. Like you have an end date, right? So it's a little more accessible in your body to be like, I'm just going to sit in this uncertainty. Yeah. And gain comfort of being with it versus trying to be like, okay, when am I going to get out of it? When am I going to get out of it? And that's consuming your entire day. So it's like, how can you go take a hike, even with uncertainty in the background? How can you go just enjoy time with your son, even with us, right? And just help develop that capacity in your body to be like, I can live with uncertainty, because it's literally what we do every day.
Yeah, and it's easy, I think, for us in this conversation to say, just live with it, just figure it out. Of course, I want to always maintain balance in our conversation, because it's easy to stick to one side and not take into consideration maybe the person's history, right? Because you say that she probably has a lot of it needs to other things. It's what is that relationship like with uncertainty, with change? Like COVID, I think, gave us all a lot of practice as it relates to uncertainty. There was nothing you could do. It stressed a lot of people out. It left a lot of people in pain. It left a lot of people outside of their comfort zone. And a lot of people recovered, and some still haven't recovered because maybe it triggered some past experiences that maybe you thought you pushed away long enough that it just kind of dissipated. That never happens. I'll promise you that for now. It's stored in your body. It's stored somewhere in your mind, and it's running. You just might not be aware of it, but it's happening. So I think as much as COVID was a wreck for a lot of people, it was a blessing for some people as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that you brought in this piece of what is her experience with it.
You have to.
Because it's so essential. And so, yeah, I would love to I want to bring that in because I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Because it's like such a pet peeve of mine. People are like, oh, just learn to live with it. It's like, oh my gosh, not that easy.
Yep.
So her and I have been working together for actually on and off for like a couple of years now and have been developing her capacity around change and uncertainty because she has a ton of history around it. So it's actually really cool to have this opportunity where it's almost like a very concrete rewriting of her relationship with it because we have done so much foundational work around it that we can now be with it in a very different way. But yes, it requires this exploration into the unconscious.
Absolutely.
So, tell me how you go about that, because I know you have a little bit of different ways than I do, because there's so many ways to access the unconscious, and it's so fun to hear different.
Maybe when I do even explain it, it's the same. Like I said, I don't know if there's any new information anymore. It's probably just recycled information. So I think everything starts with your nervous system, right? There is nothing that I won't say nothing. You can't access your subconscious mind without shutting off your conscious mind. Right now, we're having such a conscious conversation. But in order to access those blueprints that are running, those beliefs, those thoughts that are running in the back end, your nervous system has to be quite relaxed. So if you get that through meditation, if you get that through yoga, whatever that is, whatever your process is, it's very similar to what I do. It's just really breathing. Like, breathing is free, guys. It's free plus tax.
Right.
And that's all it really is being intentional with your breathing. And that allows for your nervous system. And especially if you are someone that is, I don't want to say hypersensitive, but super sensitive to what's going on, the energies around you, your nervous system is going to respond. You have no control over that, right? But it's how it responds or how it reacts. Does it get dysregulated over the simplest things? And a lot of people that I found with chronic pain have a very sensitive nervous system, which allows for them to feel a little bit more discomfort, more pain than the average person.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do essentially is I calm your nervous system by just simply with that breathing technique and allow your mind to just relax a little bit, not just your body, but also your mind. And then we just have a conversation. It's so simple. We genuinely just have a conversation about whatever symptom, because most of the times people will come to me with symptoms. They don't know what the root cause is. And by having the conversation, then you recognize, oh, so you're telling me that I have a belief that says I'm afraid of change when you have been so comfortable with change all your life because all you've been doing is changing. You're making sure that you don't have those patterns that your parents may have had. You're making sure that you make different decisions. So when your mind is telling you subconsciously that you're afraid of change, your actual reality is telling you otherwise. So do you see where the conflict is?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's where you're having that internal battle, that internal struggle to decide, okay, do I go and do I change my job? You've done it before. You may have done it differently, but it's just allowing your mind to understand that it's not it that runs the show, it's you.
Yes. I talk about that internal tension a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think, I don't know what types of people you tend to see, but I see a lot of people who are very analytical. They're incredibly intelligent, right? You're like, yep. It's like very perfectionistic, type A. And so often they come in and they like are logically on board with what they want. And they just,
there's an emotion that's just blocking it.
Yeah. And they don't realize that their nervous system, though, is absolutely rejecting that. And it's like, oh, hell no.
This is not safe. This is a threat.
Yeah. And so your poor nervous system is like, yeah, I got to fight for my life. And this thing that is dragging me along is not safe to be in. And then I think when you combine that with chronic pain, you really create this whole system where it's like there is an unsafety to even be in your own body.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like your body's betraying you, essentially.
Yes. And
you have to say that out loud. It's bringing that to the surface, because once you say it, you're like, why would my body betray? And that's when you start asking yourself these questions, especially if you're analytical, especially even if you're emotional. You're like, but why would I do this to myself? And the truth, it is you that's doing it to you. It's not anybody else. It's not. So when we're going to medical professionals and we're expecting them, not to say that they shouldn't have the information, but I think there is a responsibility, and I use this word often, especially this year, that we have to ourselves to understand what the hell is going on with us first, right? The doctors can only do so much. We are one individuals. We operate differently. Even though we're similar, we still have those little quirks, those little screws that we kind of have to adjust for ourselves. When you have to know who you are, you have to know what you need. And I think I just said it, you have to know what you need. Yes. And I look at it from the standpoint of plants, and I tell you, I'm about nature.
I love it. Yeah.
I have this pepper plant that I cater to. Of course, we're during the winter season, so it's not outside, it's inside my home, which means that I have to control the conditions, give it what it needs. I have to be really vigilant about what I give to it. But I had to know what it needed.
Yes.
It needed more water. It needs more sunlight, especially because it's right now giving me fruits. I know it needs more water than anything right now. And by knowing that, I'm able to give that to the plant. But it's the same for ourselves. We need to know what we need on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, because if we don't know, how do we expect everybody else to know?
Yeah. And I love this analogy because it's so perfect, because what I think we often do, and I know myself, this is where I struggled, is it's like I would hear things like this and I'd get like, oh, but I don't know what I need. So now what am I, right? It feels like this double bind. It's like,
yeah,
okay, so I'm supposed to know what I want, but I don't trust my body. My body's constantly betraying me. So how the hell am I supposed to know what I want? Because when I give it what I think it needs, then it freaks, right? It's this like, ah. And it takes this, what I love about plants is there's probably a degree of maybe doing some research on this specific
absolutely.
plant.
And experiences too, your own past experiences tell you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like doing some research to be like, okay, in general, what does this type of plant need, right? Is it one that likes the sun or one that likes the water? But then it's almost getting to know the individual plant. What happens when I give it this much water? What happens when I give it this much water while it's giving me fruit, right? It's like, it's different. And it makes me think, my sister gave me this aloe plant. And aloe plants, right? They love sun.
Yes, they do.
This freaking thing, it hated sun, I swear. I lived in Seattle when I had it. And I just joke. I was like, it was just like born and raised in Seattle. I could have it on my windowsill during the winter months when it wasn't sunny. And during the summer, if I kept it there in the sun, it would turn brown.
So it's the heat. It's the
heat.
Probably.
Yeah. So I would have to actually take it away. I was going to say, it's probably more. I know nothing about plants, but I would have to take it away, and I could keep it in the like shade more, and like I put it on this other, place I had that really wasn't in direct sun, and it would stay green all summer. But it's like, okay, so that obvious thing of like, oh, it needs direct sunlight, all of a sudden that wasn't working because of probably the way the sun was coming in and the heat, that whatever it was,
We are the same.
Exactly.
We are the same, and we're always changing, right? So the plant, the one thing about the plant, it speaks, but it speaks in its own way, and it also has a tendency, if it's not getting enough sun, it'll go towards it. I don't know if you've ever seen that with plants where if you put it in a dark area, suddenly you see the leaves start to turn towards the sun. It will do that, and we're the same. We need what we need, and I think often when I speak to the clients that I work with, mostly females, they're like, but that sounds so needy. Like, I'm like, but that's what you need. Like, what do you mean needy? It's what you need to survive. It's what you need to thrive. There's no issue. There's no problem with getting what you need. But then in the moment I catch myself and I'm like, remember, Caurel, maybe that's very unfamiliar to them, getting their needs met. So when it's almost like a threatening statement. When you say, hey, it's okay to get your needs met, they're like, no, I don't know what that feels like. So right now, maybe you should stop talking.
Yeah. Yes. And explore. I love that. Like, being able to sense that, like, discomfort and resistance in your body. Resistance is like my favorite thing to work with because it tells you so much, right? It's like that resistance to that statement. If you're listening right now and you just felt your stomach clenched to Caurel saying you deserve to have your needs met, it's like, oh yes, there's so much goodness to explore here. Like, this is the place then to dive deeper into and learn what is then your unconscious holding on to.
Yeah. And you said it, it's figuring out what are those unconscious needs that you have.
Mm-hmm.
Having not had your needs met, or maybe not met in the way that you needed it. Because a lot of people will say, especially when I talk to parents, but I took care of their food, I took care of their clothes, I took care of their... I'm like, yeah, that's wonderful. Check, check, check. But what about those emotional needs? And I know that I'm talking to a lot of parents that do not even know what that is. They don't even have a relationship with their emotional needs because, again, it's that cycle, right? It's that generational trauma that is just passed on. Every generation can say, okay, yeah, my parent didn't do... I don't know what that looks like. But when does it become your responsibility to change that?
Yes. It's like once you are an adult, it is your responsibility. Let's talk about this piece a little bit more because I don't know. I'm curious, like what you see. Sometimes, like, right, you're in your own like internet bubble or like little bubble.
Yeah.
But I feel like I started really noticing a shit. Like I had to like leave a lot of. I was in like mom's groups and things like that, and I just was like, this is, it's going to a really weird place.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very frank about it. That's one thing you get with me. I'm going to
yeah, I mean, I will be too, because it's just like, it's going to this really weird place of like, we're enforcing a victim mentality and almost celebrating a victim mentality. Like,
there you go.
The more victim you are, somehow it's like, yay, right? And it's like, and now the world somehow needs to bend to you and accommodate towards you. And it's just like, wait, this doesn't work.
It does not. It does not. I could not sleep this morning. And this whole conversation was running through my head.
I would love to, go.
The same exact thing that you just said, it's celebrated. It's, you don't understand how much that is keeping you exactly where you are. There are two stories that you can tell yourself, right? You've experienced this and they did this to me. You've experienced this says, okay, so I'm a part of this situation. There's a role that I play. There's a role that somebody else played. However, I can't really take control of what the other person did. I can only be responsible for what I have in this situation. The other one says, oh, it's them. I had nothing to do with this. They have to do something different. I'm just the innocent bystander. I did not participate in this. And what you don't realize is that you're giving the power to that person. And they have all the power. All of it. All of it.
Yeah.
And how do you change, or how does a situation get better if somebody else has all the power?
Exactly. And I think the irony here is, so it's like I was, I've done like a year-long training on like patriarchy stress disorder, right? And these like, and it's like, it's real. Like there's obviously massive systemic structures that have the power, that are creating imbalances, that are leading to all kinds of horrible things. And ironically, what I'm seeing is exactly what you're talking about. It's almost like the more people are learning about it, the more they're handing over the power right back to these structures of like, well, I'm a victim of this because I'm a woman and now I'm not getting paid as much and there's nothing. It's like it's almost reinforcing it, like it's strengthening it the more that people are learning about it. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, the whole point of learning about it is so you can then do something about it.
It's Stockholm syndrome.
Oh, yeah. Like, what's up with that? Like, it's like, yeah, it's a very confusing thing. Because I was in this great group of women, and it's like, I feel like we, like, especially in the beginning of the program, right, there was so much to, like, oh my gosh, uncover, and like, oh my gosh, I'm discovering all these elements of my life and how I act, where these, structures maybe kept my, limited my voice, limited how I was acting. And then I noticed, like, I really started this, like, diversion that happened at the end. I noticed people almost diving more into the victim and then, like, wanting to isolate themselves and not wanting to talk to anybody who didn't understand the you know what I mean? And I was like, hey, but, like, my neighbor's super cool and she doesn't talk about the patriarchy. Yeah. Like, why are we not talking to people? Like, why are we isolating?
It's a delusion. It's a delusion that you're going to create, an illusion that you're going to create, because of course the mind wants you to be safe, right? It's going to do anything to keep you safe. So if isolation is safe to you in that moment, that's what it's going to do. And again, we are allowing our minds to run the show when we are in control of our minds.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's sad. Like, I'm not going to sit here, and I'm very direct about it, but it's sad to see and it's sad to experience. Also, as someone that has, you know, I've also been that person. I'm not sitting here on a high horse to say, oh, I'm imperfect. Oh, I've experienced it. I've been that person. I, however, I'm stopping myself from being that person because I didn't like where I was. And I'm sure you don't like where you are being the victim. You are powerless. You essentially feel so powerless, and life is not fun. And I like fun. I really like fun.
Yeah. Fun is really fun.
Yeah. So I had to make a change. I had to make a conscious decision, one, to do the work, because it does require you to do the work. And the work looks like changing the story that you're telling yourself. It's easy to tell it from the victim mentality because, let's be honest, like, victims get a lot of empathy. Like, what comes with being a victim is a lot of empathy, a lot of sympathy, a lot of, I see you, you're not alone. But you are still alone if it is that you keep doing the same thing over and over and you're not giving yourself the chance to be who you really are, because you never came here to be a victim.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You didn't.
Yes.
You may experience things. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that this world is the most perfect world, the most chaosless world. It's chaotic. That's the environment. It's chaotic. That's where we start from. But we don't have to feed into that. And I think why a lot of people feed into it, because it's easier to live that way. It's easy to be it's easy. It's harder to do this work. It's hard. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it's not.
It's really hard. I mean, I catch myself in that state all the time. You know what I mean? Like, in many areas, right? It's where I was like, oh, wait a minute. I'm totally in victim right now. And it's like, we can recognize we're there. And then the next step is, okay, having love and compassion, meet yourself where you are, which is what I talk about. Okay, hello, I see where I'm being very victim-y about this right now. And I catch it. And then I'm like, okay, do I want to stay here? No,
it might feel good. And
yeah, it's like, okay,
let me manipulation cycle, right?
Let me bitch about it for 30 more seconds and then move out.
There you go. I think because we live in such a manipulative world, it's easy to fall prey to that, right? And I use these words specifically because that's what it is. You know, if you look at the animal kingdom, you have prey and you have predators. It's no different here. I know we think we're the smartest. I know we think that, oh, we're so evolved and the animals are just so animalistic and we're just so human. We are not separate. We are the same. We operate the same. There is a pecking order.
Yes.
You need to know where you fall and if that's where you want to stay, because you have the choice if you stay there.
Yeah. Oh, I love the way you said that. That's really powerful. And I think so important to acknowledge. It's like, my parents would always, this is like when I grew up, life isn't fair. And it's like, life isn't fair. It's like, it's not.
No, it's not.
It's not at all.
We have to be real about it, right? The more we tell ourselves lies, the more we're deceiving ourselves, is why we're not moving forward. We have to be real about it. I'm not going to sit here and tell myself every day something I know isn't true just for me to feel better. I'm going to feel better right now, but I'm still going to be here 10 years later. Do I want to be here 10 years later? Hell no. No.
Yeah, right.
No.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to be in this pain. Like, I think it's the struggle of thinking, okay, what do I do now that this isn't serving me anymore? Well, you learn the tools that you need. Again, I say you in particular because this isn't about your neighbor. This isn't about me. This is about you. So you figure out what it is that you need and go from there. And okay, how do you figure that out? Living life. Living life has taught you what you need. Living life has also told you what you don't need. And it's listening to that. It means doing some introspection, looking at things in hindsight. You're going to look back at some things you might not want to look at, you might not want to revisit, but how else are you going to get the information? Because I can't tell you. I'm just here facilitating.
Yes, exactly. That's always, it's like I am just guiding you to like kind of stay on track so your mind doesn't take back over and go
exactly
in the same loops that it's going to go in, because it's what's familiar, it's what we're used to. And I need someone to facilitate me because my mind goes in all the same loops as well. Like, right? Yeah. And I think the only difference is that I at least can catch it now for the my coach was
sometimes you just don't.
He's like, Andrea, you know this. Oh yeah. Dang it, I wasn't that, wasn't I? Okay. Right, and it's not about being perfect. It's not about never getting in those patterns, because we're all going to get in them.
Absolutely.
Just recognizing it and then being like, I don't want to be here anymore.
I don't. And doing what it takes to not be there. I have to say that part. I would always say that part, because that's the part a lot of people miss. You get the understanding, you get to the root issue, but then you continue just living life the same way, thinking that, okay, well, I know I'm not actually executing, but it's going to fix it.
Yes, I think this is the big thing, is that, and I will see a lot of people come to me having done a lot of other mind-body work, right? Because there's so many things now, resources available, and they've done all these programs, and they're like, well, I know my pain is because of this and this and this, but it hasn't changed. I was like, well, because just knowing, it's like being like, I know my plant needs water, but not watering it. Like, you can know that exactly what it needs if you don't do it. And I want to acknowledge, because for me, this is my biggest struggle, is I'm really good at knowing, and the doing does not. I think there are people in this world that are like the doers, right? They just like do, and it's like they're so good at executing. I'm not. I am not naturally. I am the person who will like stay in inner work. Like I'm like, I will sit here and analyze my mind all day long.
Analysis paralysis.
Yes. That feels so safe to just be in my right. And I recognize this about myself. So I'm much better now about like, no, I need to take the action. And that can be really, really hard.
I agree. I can relate to that, it being hard. And I think the harder part too sometimes is you do it that one time and like, okay, I did it. I did it. And then you stop.
Then you're like, damn it, I have to do it again.
You got to do it again.
And again, and again, and again. Yes.
You had it. One and it's easier. It's like, it's a muscle, right? It's unfamiliar. So you're going to have to keep doing it until it becomes familiar. And it's a good habit too, right? So it doesn't have to go to the extreme of it being an obsession. But it's you recognizing, okay, this actually is going to work for me. It's worth it. Okay, it's worth it to do this. Okay, I'll keep going. And then, of course, those habits come back in and you're like, I see you. Yeah. Let's have fun with it, right? I talk to you. I'm like, I see you. I see what you're trying to do. Nope, not today.
I'm such a fan of talking to things as if they are, do like parts work, right? So it's, but to me, I just assigned everything as its own little like human or identity, of like, oh, I see you try to come in and make me think this, like, on to you, get out of here. Like, just be gone. Look you away.
Oh my God.
But you had a really beautiful way of talking about like helplessness and like moving out of it. It's like out of hopelessness and helplessness. And I think you were really differentiating them in a way that I thought was really useful, because I do see people, it's like they've tried, especially I think, and I mean, maybe it's just the people I see, right, is this biased view. It's like they've gone from the conventional world, they found no answers there, they found the mind-body world, and they were so hopeful. But then what happened was what we just talked about. It's like they often were doing all this learning, all this analytical understanding, but the doing wasn't actually happening. Or if it was just not in a way that was right for them.
Yeah.
And so now it's like they feel like they've tried it all. Yeah. And like, but I've done it all. Now I have and so they get really hopeless.
Yeah. That's the history with chronic pain, right? And it goes back to medical professionals are not going to know everything, right? If anybody, and I'm going to repeat this again, if anybody's going to know, it's you. It might not feel like it right now, but all that information is within you. It's just tapping into that. So I think, yes, we have alternative and holistic medical alternatives, But again, you're falling into that trap of, if you don't know what it is that you need, then you're just trying everything, right? And I don't want to say you're wasting your time, because along the path, you're learning things, but you're not learning what you need to learn for yourself. And the way to get to that answer, it's here. It's here. It's in your body, and it's finding that. What might work for me might not work for you, right? It might not. But at least having that openness, that optimism. I know, having tried probably 20 different things, 30 different things, it gets exhausting, it gets frustrating, right? And then you start to tell yourself a story. But what I found out is that the hopelessness or the helplessness didn't just start with that pain. It was there before. The pain might have exasperated it, but it's been there. It's been there. And I found that, especially, and I think I explained this in a video of mine, that especially as children, we are so egocentric. Everything's about us. And if we can't do something and we think we're supposed to be able to do it, that's when the learned helplessness comes in, right? So I'm supposed to be able to help my mom soothe herself. No, but you're 2 years old. She's supposed to be helping you. But we don't know that at 2, right? We just think that we are superhuman. We're supposed to know everything. We're supposed to do everything. But because we can't, it means something is wrong with us. And that's the story that's running as it relates to the helplessness. It's learned. You're thinking that something's wrong with you because you can't do the thing that you're not supposed to be able to do.
Yes.
That's where it's stemming from. But as it relates to chronic pain, there is something you can do, but you've already attached that helplessness. And then that's where the hopelessness comes in, is because you're trying everything that isn't necessarily for you instead of the thing that is for you.
Yes. I think that coming in at that really young age, and the way you spoke about it, of like the being expected to do something that you just, it's not developmentally appropriate.
Yeah. It's not.
Yeah. Oh, and what's so interesting though is I feel like you see that in, and this is a blanket statement, right, for how generations tend to be raised, right? I feel like in kind of the, not older, I would say like maybe my age and older, you see that happening. It's almost like the expectations are too high.
Yeah.
But now it's the opposite. It's swung so far in the other way. And I mean, I think this is true for like the entire, right, like Gen Z right now is what you're seeing is, and again, blanket statements.
Yeah.
Is a lot of them can't do anything because what was happening is they were never allowed to struggle.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm seeing.
Extremes. I always say the extremes are never good.
And I see that because it's so interesting. Like I have some clients who are like in their 70s, and then I have some clients who are in their 20s, and it's like I have to work with them so differently because it's like that's exactly what it is. It's like the ones that are in their 20s, a lot of them had very helicopter parents. They were raised with like, you're the most amazing person in the world. I'm never going to let you struggle. Let me do everything for you. And so they have no agency. Like they don't know how to do like it's, and I'm saying that as a, again, blanket statement. It's like, and it's not their fault, right? But I actually feel like I have found it much more challenging to work with that group.
Yeah.
Who had everything almost done for them and was never having to struggle. And I mean, it's also life experience, right? It's like how much is just an age thing too. Then some of my, boomer generation people who they know how to get things done, but it's like they have had such high expectations of themselves that they're now just able to like heal and like meet for the first time. It's like now they're coming into like retirement and they don't know how to just be like, what do I, like they're just facing that question of like, what do I want me for the first time in their life? Because everything has been outward oriented. Anyway, sorry, this is like,
no, it's fine. Like,
it's fascinating. Like,
I think it's interesting because I'll always go back to environment, because we can't sit here and not consider what the environment was for each generation, right? So right now there's so much information. We have parents who they are looking back, they're doing the work. Those what is it called? Is it soft parenting? Yeah,
gentle parenting.
Gentle parenting. And I think that the people that are, and sometimes it's overcompensation, and I'm going to just be straight with it.
It is.
I experienced all of this shit.
Yep.
I don't want to put that on my kids. So this is how I'm going to compensate for that. And we don't recognize that times have changed. And with the change in environment, yes, things have to evolve. But I think what is missing most of the times, no matter what generation you go to, is balance. It's always just so extreme. And I get it. Like it's just how our mind works. Especially if we have that all or nothing or black and white thinking, people don't see middle ground. They don't see the middle ground.
Totally. And I feel like that's such a trait, right, of like a hypervigilant nervous system is black and white thinking and having no ability to just be in the gray with nuance. Yeah. And that's very challenging for people. And I think it's because you were using the word egocentric, and I think a lot of parenting is, which is me, this is how I started as a parent, was almost like I've never thought about it this way, but it's almost like a very egocentric parenting. And like, what did I need when I was a kid?
There you go.
And here's the thing, is that my son was here on this earth clearly to show me, Andrew, get out of your own damn head. And what does he need? Because it's not, right? Like I was very much in the gentle parenting world, and I have since parted ways with it because wow, did it screw me over for my child. And I mean, that's my fault, right? That was it's not it screwing me over, right? It's like, I recognize
responsibility.
It sounded so appealing because it was the emotional piece that I never got as a child.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Like, I don't even know what that would be like to have this type of like love and emotional needs met. And that's how I started with my child. And boy, did that go poorly.
And you know what? I'm glad you recognized it too. Because a lot of parents don't. And even when I say it, it's like, how dare you? But I'm like, do you want me to keep you in self-deception, or do you want me to help you get out of it? Because the thing is, what people have to understand is, if I keep telling you what you want to hear, then why am I there?
Right? Yeah.
You don't need me.
Yeah.
You don't need me. You can tell yourself all the lies you want. I just can't do it.
I think the biggest thing is like, is it working for you, right?
It's not. But it's the safer choice for a lot of it, right? It's a safer choice.
Yeah. And we're always going to choose the safer. Like, we're always going to want to choose a safer choice, right?
That's the mind. That's the mind. It's choosing safety, but you have to define what safety is, right? Mm-hmm. Safety could be something that's toxic. It could be. It could be manipulative. It could be passive-aggressive. But that's what you have safety as. But if safety isn't in its true essence what you need it for yourself, you're never going to get there.
Yeah. Oh, it makes me think.
People don't deserve to get there. And that's just me being straight. Some people have not done what they need to do to get there. So when you see someone, living the life that they want to live, and you're like, how come I? Well, I can tell you it's because you didn't want it. Yeah. You didn't want it, because if you wanted it, you do what you have to do.
Yeah, let's talk about this piece more, because I know this was a piece that I heard that a lot, and I struggled with it as someone who really struggled to take action, because I'm like, well, God damn it, I want it. And what is it, right? Like, I struggle with kind of that entitlement piece, right? Which is what I discovered it was. It was very entitled of like, why can't I have this thing? Yeah. And it's deeper than I think this goes to like, your mind can want it, but your whole self, like I talk about whole self integration, it's like your whole self has to want it. And so when I learned that shift and I kind of ran through what I wanted through my whole self, I was like, oh, just kidding. My entire self's like, absolutely not. We do not want money. That is terrible. We do not want a successful business. That would be too much responsibility, right? And so I was like, oh, just kidding. I guess I really don't want it. But I logically wanted it. I just didn't know at the time how to work with my subconscious to realize, oh, just kidding. Yeah. So for those that are listening, they're like, but I do want it. Chances are,
I can't say anything.
Yes, parts of yourself are very much rejecting it, and that is the place to explore.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think what I had to do for myself to start executing. Well, I won't say start executing, to continue executing, because my struggle is consistency. My struggle is discipline.
Same. Yep.
I had to recognize why I didn't. Again, I'm into human design. I'm into numerology. So I know what my foundation is. My foundation is, it tells me, according to these things, I'll call them, that I'm just inconsistent. I have inconsistent energy. You know, I just can't continue go. That's not my thing. And I'm like, yeah, that feels comforting, but that's not getting me where I need to go. So, okay, what do we do now? And I had to sit with myself, and this is why I do what I do. I have had a lineage, hopefully I can keep it together. I have had a lineage of women that have been in silent pain. Silent pain, and they did what they needed to do to survive. So I said to myself, do I want to be somebody that just continues to survive because, oh, that's just how I am, that's just my design? I couldn't sit in that excuse anymore. I had to take responsibility, and in recognizing the privilege, because it is a privilege that I have this much information. My mother didn't have this much information. My grandmother sure as hell didn't have this information. I have access to all of this. And you're telling me, because you are just who you are just going to accept, and I call it mediocrity, and I'm being very kind to myself, but it is that. And once I was able to verbalize and say it's mediocrity, I started moving, and I started calling myself out even more. And I do these in kind ways. I want you to hear me clearly. I'm not critical of myself. I just need to be honest with myself, because deceiving myself sure as hell did not work. It did not.
Oh, yes. I love the way that you said this, and I just want to acknowledge the bigness of what you're doing, of breaking that generational cycle, because I know that is no easy feat.
It's not
at all. And yeah, it's so interesting hearing your experience, because it's like, you talked about the privilege of it. I feel like that's something that I've really had to come to terms with too, because it's like, I mean, my listeners know, it's like my lineage has also been had a lot. Like, I have Holocaust survivors. My parents immigrated when their country was invaded, right? It's like, and I am here, I was raised as entitled as shit. You know what I mean? Like, I was so privileged growing up. I mean, I could sit here and be like, well, it was really tough growing up with immigrant parents. Like, I never fit in, right? Like, there was all kinds of things that, were hard, but good Lord, did I have a nice life, right? Like, very privileged.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's almost in exchange that I'm breaking the cycles, right? And I am now kind of the first generation that gets to actually acknowledge the wounds of the previous, because that was never talked about. It was never looked at, right? Like, I'm holding so much grief.
Yeah.
It was never given to me.
Getting chills now. Conversation is getting real now.
And it's almost just like, I think once I was able to not see that as a burden, but as like such a gift and such like a strength.
Yeah.
And it's like, that mediocrity piece, that like hits hard. And it took me a while to be able to have that, like, I guess, realness with myself, where it wasn't from a place of self-criticism. It was almost just as simple of like, right now I'm wearing a gray jacket. Right now I'm engaging in mediocrity. I would rather wear a purple jacket, right? You know what I mean? I'm going to go change it. It's neutral isn't quite the right word, because I guess it's not neutral, because I'm like, I don't want to be in mediocrity. But it's not from a place of like, it's not this harsh judgment. It didn't feel like the inner critic piece. It felt like that best friend who's like, girl, like, you have more to do in this world.
Yep. Absolutely.
I'm going to hold you accountable for it in the best ways. And of course, you get to rest, you get to care for yourself, you get to nourish yourself, you get to meet your needs, because you have all this stuff better to do in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, let me find my words. It's so easy. Again, it's back to playing the victim. It's so easy to blame your parents. It's easy. It's easy to blame the person that has caused harm to you. It's easy. You see that moment where that mirror is held up to you to say, nope, it's you. Not easy. Not easy. It's, okay, so how do I make this a little bit easier? And that's me. I don't like when things are too complicated. I don't like, I'm not the work hard kind of person. I'm the work smart kind of person.
Yes, I'm with you on that. Me too.
So like, how can I, in a smart way, make this a little less hard? So I said, okay, it's a story. So I could say my parents were not present. They didn't meet my needs. I felt abandoned. All these feelings. And it's not saying to not acknowledge those feelings. It's write those feelings down.
Yes.
Because you have to address the story.
Yes.
There comes a point in your life, however, where that story is going to change. And the more healing that you do is the more the story changes. So instead of saying it that way, I now say, okay, I know who I am today. And if I actually had my parents around 24/7, the way that other kids had, I wouldn't be who I am today. I would be so frustrated because I love the idea of just doing things on my own. I love it. I love it. But if I had my parents, both parents there all day, every day, telling me what to do, how to do it, because they are those kind of parents. The fact that they were absent actually was a benefit for me to become this person. So it's hard to look at your pain and say it was a beneficial thing. But let me tell you, some of these things that happened, and of course, critical thinking here, guys, some things may have not been things that you wanted to experience, but there are some things that you have experienced that were actually to your benefit.
Yeah. Yes.
I couldn't have been this person if my father was around. And it's a bold statement, but it's the truth. My father's very hands-on. My father's very... I was very good at track and field up until I was 18. And he said, well, if I knew you were good, I would make sure you were still doing it to this day. And I'm like, hell no. Not going to happen. I knew at 18 that I was done. I needed to move on to something else. But if he was around, I would have never had that opportunity.
Yes. Wow. Yeah.
So I look at it now that way to say, well, if he was present, how would life be for me? I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do. I made a lot of mistakes. I would not be able to make the mistakes that I was able to make. So I'm great. It allows for you to be grateful.
Yeah.
Grateful for things that you think are painful. Some of it is painful, but it's not to say throw it all out. It's to say examine the feelings. The feelings sometimes are so separate from the experience. Examine them. Dig a little bit deeper. What's that story? Is that story true? Because you don't have the full story. I can promise you that.
That absolutely. Yeah. Ew, that's so true on so many levels. Oh, that's just it's really beautifully said, because again, it gives you the power back to do that. And I think anything else, like blaming your parents or, even in the case of something horrible happening to you that you didn't deserve, that no one deserves, I think the only way to reclaim your power is to reframe it and how can I grow, or what can I do with this because you experienced it. Like, no amount of it being wrong or unjust or horrible or horrific is going to change the fact that it happened. The only thing you have left to do is change what you're going to do with it.
Yeah. That's your response, your responsibility.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think, again, it boils back down to the environment. If we stop lying to ourselves and saying this world is so perfect, this world is a utopia, no, we have to admit the world is cruel. It can be very cruel. It is cruel. If you want to keep it as a finite statement, it is a cruel world. And in it being a cruel world, there are certain things that are going to happen. And if you go with that understanding, you don't navigate this world. You don't walk this world all oblivious, all naive. You put certain things in place. We have to be aware of the environment that we live in.
Yeah, you are.
That it isn't because you don't want to, I don't want to see it looking that way. But it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
It is. That is something that I've been doing a lot of, like so much of the work that I've done is around being able to acknowledge an immense amount of suffering that is happening at any given moment.
Oh yeah.
And in my lineage, right? It's like I couldn't, like I was totally that person, right? Who's just like, why can't everyone just hold hands and get along and be happy? And I'm like, yeah, I wish, like I really wish, like that. It was like, but it's like, but getting stuck on that hope is exactly what keeps us completely stuck. I mean, right? It's like that actually is going to be the thing that keeps that from ever happening. It's like if there's any chance of that ever happening, which it won't, I don't think, but if there's a chance of it,
it won't.
It could only happen by acknowledging what is true. And that is the suffering and the cruelty and the reality. And within that you still get to create your own reality and respond to your life in the way that feels that's amazing for you.
I mean, and I think that's when you're truly living, right? Mm-hmm. You're not creating this fantasy. Because, look, I love my imagination.
Me too.
I love it so much sometimes.
I know.
But I got to get out of it because I know that my imagination isn't reality.
Mm-hmm.
And if I stay in imagination, I am screwed. I am screwed. I'm screwed. Because I would love for it to be a utopia. But then what would be the point of us being here?
I know. Yeah, exactly.
So I've let utopia go, and I'm now seeing things for what they are, removing the illusion, the delusion, and in seeing it for what it is, you respond accordingly.
Yes.
You don't react, you respond accordingly, because it's easy to react.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you may not be at that stage in your healing, your journey, where you can resonate with this part, and that's okay. Eventually, and maybe not, again, being a realist, you may never get to this point.
Yeah.
And you have to accept that. But as long as you're putting in the effort, as long as you've put everything on the table, at least you know you've set up yourself for success. You've done the best that you can, like genuinely done the best that you can by leaving everything on the table. Then that's all that matters.
Yes. I think that is such a great place to wrap up, although I could feel like I could keep talking to you for another hour. Maybe we need to do a part 2.
Maybe. We got it.
Yes. Where can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram. My handle is In Divine Time. I'll spell it out because, of course, I'm a little quirky, so I had to make it a little quirky. So it's INDIVINETHYME.
I love it. It'll be in the show notes too, but yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also my website is the same, indivinetime.com. YouTube, TikTok, all the shebang. Amazing.
It was such a pleasure talking to you. I have so enjoyed this conversation. Thank you so much for your time today.
I'll be back. I promise.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.